We would like to thank the following sponsors: Poland, WSHAsia India, Snorkel, 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫. Our association partners: WSHAsia, enhancing HSE and culture; Sarah, Construction Equipment Rental Association; and our media partner, WSHAsia, World of Safety and Health Asia. We would also like to welcome 𝐒𝐞𝐞𝐦𝐵, powering the future. iRise India. We would like to thank the following sponsors: Poland, WSHAsia India, Snorkel, 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐵. Our association partners: WSHAsia, enhancing HSE and culture; Sarah, Construction Equipment Rental Association; and our media partner, WSHAsia, World of Safety and Health Asia. We would also like to welcome 𝐒𝐿𝐵, powering the future. iRise India. we would like to thank the following sponsors: 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫, Osh India, Snorkel, Genie, JLG. Our association partners: WSHAsia, Enhancing HSE and Culture; Sarah, Construction Equipment Rental Association; and our media partner, WSHAsia, World of Safety and Health Asia. We would also like to welcome ME&SA, here, powering the future. iRise India. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Indian National Safety Week Day 4. And today, we're going to talk about MUE equipment and registration. Well, today is a very special series. I mean, a very special session because we have great panelists for today. We got from JLG, Tarex, and 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫 India. So I won't keep you guys waiting or on hang on this, but I would like to call on Jason Woods, IPAF Regional Manager for Middle East and South Asia, to give us a word. Good afternoon, Sir Jason. Welcome back again.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon. Sorry, Ali, where you are sitting. And everyone in India, good afternoon. Again, thank you very much for joining this session. It's our final session of the week. It's been an absolute fantastic week. We've covered many topics from risk management, moving into fall protection, naturally the safety harness or safety belt as it's known in some of the regions. And then we focused on operator risk. So some real good topics covered. And today our main focus is going to move into what does the kit look like. So we do have some great partners with us today who's going to join us. And I think just remember that these kind of sessions are dedicated towards elevating work platform safety. And it's a monopoly of areas where, you know, we have to focus and keep the workforce safe. So we're going to have some interesting topics today, I'm sure. But again, thank you very much for joining us. And again, thank you, the team behind the scenes. All the work which has been put into this week has been massive. And also, thank you very much for the sponsors for supporting us and making these kind of events happen. So, like I say, you know, it's that big umbrella. We're all in there together, and it's time to certainly work very close together. So yeah, let's call out our panelists up and let the discussions begin.
Okay, so before we start, I would like to introduce one of our panelists, 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫, Director from 𝐒𝐞𝐞𝐻𝐿𝐻 India Private Company. Hi, sir. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Ali. Good
Hi, sir.
afternoon. And
Good afternoon.
sorry, good morning to you and yeah, good morning to Jason and good afternoon to all the participants here in India. Very good afternoon to you all. Um, I would like to thank Jason for taking this initiative of conducting such a wonderful webinar session for the last 4 days on account of the India National Safety Week. Having known Jason for almost a decade now, since I have been in this field at a lot for over a decade, it's been a pleasure working with him and the kind of attribute and the effort that he brings in to bring about the safe practices of MUPS into India. Jason has been instrumental force in it, and I strongly commend his efforts and his contribution in this regard. So yes, it's a great pleasure to be invited to be a part of this esteemed panel and try to share my views with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Sumare. Now I would like to introduce our second panelist. He is from JLG Industries India Private Limited. I would like to welcome Mr. Vishnu S. Reddy. Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon. Thank you.
Would you like
Uh,
to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, this is Vishnu here from JLG. Thanks for giving an opportunity to be a part of this safety week, which is very important an aspect for our construction industry, and especially for the MUPS because we carry people on to heights. So JLG, as with all the other manufacturers here, we along with IPAF, we will be associated in this safety meeting. And thanks for giving us an opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Vishnu. And our last panelist would be from Tarex. Good afternoon and welcome, Mr. Sharbal Kordahi. Would you like to
Hi,
introduce yourself?
good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Yes, my name is Sharbal Kordahi. I'm the Managing Director of Terex Equipment Middle East and the Sales Director for Genie, the aerial work platform product of Terex in Middle East, Southern Africa, India, Russia, CIS. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm looking forward for a very productive and good session. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, I'm gonna bring out our four panelists back. So it's gonna be a round table for everyone, and I'm gonna leave you gentlemen to talk about it. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. Welcome, guys. Good to see you virtually yet again. You're all looking very well and young, of course, no doubt. So yeah, no, thank you, guys. Thanks certainly for joining us. I know we all are very passionate, certainly of flying the flag of safety, and I think that's very important. And it's certainly been a good week in terms of promoting working at height safety for India, especially falling in line with the Indian Safety Week. Suma, we cheated slightly. We certainly jumped in a little bit early because it's really the 4th of March. But I thought, why not? Let's get it rolling and really ramp up the pace, I think. But yeah, no, thank you very much. So I've put together a few bulletin points for us to work off. And obviously we've been talking offline for the last few days, off and on. So as I mentioned earlier, we've spoken this week, certainly in a number of areas. So we focus on the risk assessment guy, the HSE person on site, because surely he needs to be heading in the right direction to start off with. We've also spoken about fall protection elements, meaning the safety harness, preventing the person from putting themselves in that risk factor. And yesterday I kind of touched on mainly highlighted 2 points, 2 areas of operator risk. And one naturally is entrapment, which doesn't go away. Even though, as manufacturers, we build and we keep building safety devices to be added into platforms, but the risk of entrapment is still high. And correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time it is operator error because we're not observing the movement of platform. And it really is frustrating because we can cover this quite easily, whether it's safety features or an operator is trained correctly. Another key area which I spoke briefly about yesterday was machine tip over. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the machines, MUPs, are not designed to fall over. They're actually designed to lift into a work zone, whether that may be up or down, meaning under bridge repair. And then the final one, which I touched on yesterday, which is a great favorite of mine, is decals. An operator must understand what the decals read and what they say. So if we're talking about safe working load, for an example, then an operator should have the confidence to read what does that safe working load mean. If it's an extra capacity platform, for an example, where my limitations would be. So taking all these other topics aside, now I think it's time for us to talk as manufacturers and see where do we pitch ourselves and how do we feel the market is either developing on a positive sector, or is it underdeveloping still? And are we still finding frustration where, it needs to kind of upskill itself in terms of, equipment should be functionable and it should be fit for purpose. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's very basic terminology there, but it's really, that is all what we're asking for, I think. So let's start at the very beginning. And just an open floor question, your current view on the condition of elevator work platforms, what you see as a rule running in and out India. What's your feel as a manufacturer? So it's an open floor question. Anybody can answer this one.
Sure. Jason, I'll take that first with permission from the rest of the panelists. As we all know, India is still a very, very immature market when it comes to AWPs. Okay. It's AWPs or MUPs have been there for almost 2 decades plus now, but still the market is yet to grow. There are a couple of reasons which I can attribute to that. One is, of course, the lack of any kind of a legislation in the country. I mean, if the market has to evolve, there has to be legislations, and I'm sure Sharbel and Vishnu will agree that we as manufacturers have been harping on it from time to time with various agencies in the country, with the National Safety Council. But till date, India doesn't have any legislation when it comes to working at height. So that is one of the backbinders which prevent the growth of the industry in India. Secondly, we would like to see more and more newer machines coming in, because newer machines means newer technology, safer machines, and it can be used for a longer period of time and maintained properly. What we see in India is a very different mix. The mix is mostly for used machines and new machines being on the. I mean, over the years, it has come to almost a 60-40 or a 50-50 kind of a match. But it's been overall a very strong used machine market. Coming to the second point, which hinders the growth of the market, is the uninhibited import of used machines in the country. Unfortunately, I would again say that India doesn't have any kind of rules or embargo in terms of the the age, the condition of used machines that are imported in the country. So you would even find extremely old, even out of service life machines that are imported into India. Now that is quite worrisome for us when we talk about safety. And that is where perhaps is one of the key points which every safety manager needs to look into.
So, Suma, thanks for that. When we talk about age of equipment, then, so we're talking of something which is what, 10-year-old, something like this, even longer,
Much more.
15,
Much more.
50?
You would
Okay.
have still machines coming off to 2000 YOM. In actuality, I've seen reports showing machines of 2000, 2001 still coming into India.
Okay.
So you can very well understand what is the service life.
Suma, when we see this or experience this, does this not put pressure then on the technicians, the owner or the rental company's mechanics? Is the maintenance cost far greater then? Are we talking as the age of the machine certainly increases? Do we find that we need to have a bigger budget for spare parts then, for an example? Is that generally how it works or not?
Well, just to answer to you on that ground, I think such equipment, the older lots which are imported, is mostly the newer and the fly-by-night kind of hirers who get cheaper machines into India, because everything depends upon the hiring rate. So clients, I think that is where it's important that all our corporate, all our infrastructure and the clients, safety managers, they should really observe what is the condition of the machine and how the upkeep is, and not only focusing on at what rate which you're getting the machine. So if today a rental company gives you an older machine at a cheaper rate, shouldn't we keep a stock to that? Shouldn't we look at how the machine is? It is safe now, and then take it. Secondly, to answer the other question regarding the upkeep of a machine, what happens when you import such older machines? Generally, they keep one most machine in standby. They will cannibalize parts from the other machine. Vishnu, you would have seen that many a times in India, and Sharbal, of course, you would be knowing what goes on in India. So they'll be cannibalizing parts from here and there. Do rental companies all have technicians? No. They would use electricians from outside. They would use mechanics from outside to come and tend to such machines. So yeah, it is a very, very worrisome situation when it comes to such older machines being in the market and not being viewed by the authorities concerned in how to use such machines and what to do with such machines.
Okay, no, there's some interesting points to work off there. Anybody else would like to add in something?
Jason, back to your point on maintenance. I mean, I agree with everything Soma just said. But going back to your point, I mean, me and you have seen it over the years. It started, the same happened in the Middle East in 1998 when the first nukes started coming into the market. We still see here nukes that are 20, 22 years old. And other than the outdated technology, the less efficiency, the high maintenance cost, definitely the maintenance cost becomes very high. On the long run, this also becomes a big burden on rental companies. What a lot of rental companies do not understand is by having a predominantly used equipment fleet, specifically aged between 7, 8 to 20 years, that at some point the market is going to evolve, whether it is today, after 1 year, or after 2 years. And even if there is no legislations, the customers themselves become more educated as the market starts to have more rental absorption and understanding of nukes. The customer themselves will start to understand that a 20-year-old machine, although cheaper, it's going to present a risk, it's going to present a lot of breakdowns, it's going to present a lot of delays. So they will start demanding younger machines. And for a rental company with, let's say, 500-600 units of old machines, to bring back their fleet into the normal fleet age of 3 to 5 to 6 years, it will cost them a lot of money and time. And by the time they get there, they will allow other competitors with younger fleet to come in and take their market share. So it is about safety, it is about cost, it is about maintenance. Long term, also, it is about the company's profitability and their ability to continue being competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, like Soma mentioned, the market in the last 10 years has changed a lot. If you would date back to 2010, there were hardly machines in India. But today, you could talking about close to 10,000 odd machines in the market. So that's the first step, a good positive direction. But the challenge is, have these machines being used for the right purpose? Are they still looked at as safety equipment, or are they productive equipment? That's where the question really comes. I believe at this point, a lot of customers rent it more for productivity than safety. And when that changeover comes in, that's when you're looking at your customer who's renting the machines, the end customer, asking you for the safety features, which would not be available on a 20-year-old machine. That's the trigger point. Second, when you have very old used machines, you are bypassing those machines, the safety features on those machines, to get it up and running. Now, there's two risks in it. One, you're virtually cannibalizing the machine in itself because you're bypassing it in every day. Two, you're risking the safety of the operators on the machine. So in both ways, it is not a very healthy situation for the machines to be working at sites. So I think if the end customers, the safety managers who rent these machines, can get to an extent where they say, okay, we want the safety to be the paramount over productivity in our machines, that's when the actual change will start. Machines will continue to flow into India, but what quality of those machines flow will depend on this decision of using aerial work platforms as safety equipment.
Okay. No, some interesting points there, and I think my open question, excuse me, is, if we was to talk about the hierarchy of measures in fleet management, for an example, obviously there's a mixed bag there of safety, maintenance, cost. Where do we? What would be the tip of the iceberg then on a hierarchy of measures? Would you say? Would you say that cost becomes the number one in India? Is that how you would kind of benchmark it?
I think the rental rates are the first point of concern. If if the guy who's taking the machine on rent cannot differentiate between a 20-year-old machine and a 5-year-old machine, and he's going to pay the same price for both, that's where you start seeping in the used machines. So for a hirer, it doesn't make a difference. For a rental company, I give a 1999 machine or a 2021 machine, he's going to get paid the same. So if that tip over starts, when the companies who are hiring the machines start to increase the rental rates, that's where there is a necessity for the rental companies to switch on to better machines. I wouldn't say new machines, but at least to better machines, which should be the first step forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I think to agree with very much with Vishnu on this. I think the first step should start from the hirers. I mean, the safety managers, the companies who are hiring, and they must differentiate between the age of the machine and the condition of the machine. If you continue, like he said, paying the same rate for machine of any age, then the seepage of older machines will keep on coming in, and if the rates determine that. But if you are putting safety first, you would still have used machines coming in, and I agree. Why not? There would be good younger fleet, younger used machines which are there, which can certainly come in and they can be put. But there has to be a benchmarking which needs to be done by the safety managers.
I don't think that the importation of used is the problem. The condition of the machines that are imported and the quality of maintenance and the quality of safety checks that are done on the machines, safety bulletins that should be up to date. This is where I think the core issue lies. I mean, I'm not against any market bringing. Used is as good, it helps the MUPS market grow in any given market. So, but the main issue always is the quality of the machines that are brought in, and the conditions, and whether they have all been properly serviced and all the safety bulletins have been conducted on these equipment.
Yeah, some interesting points now which we're leading into, and certainly I would agree with all of you. We certainly, in terms of when you look at second-hand equipment, it will never stop, and it does actually let the market breathe, I think, on movement of equipment, and certainly opening new doors for new potential clients also, I'm sure. But the real key, I think, is starting off with, is the machine fit for purpose, and what does good look like, and what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And as Chabelle has just mentioned, the maintenance key area. So if we have an older machine, ideally there's nothing wrong with this in one hand. However, the maintenance may need to be a lot stronger on this type of machine. And as Vishnu has mentioned earlier, that kind of we have to also think about the safety features, because back in 2005, something, maybe an overload device wasn't fitted to that brand or model at that particular time. So there's a lot of one step forward, two steps back, kind of, I think. But as an owner or a rental business, we should look at our strategies, I think, and look at how we sail our ship and run in that fleet. If we're kind of just letting the fleet just age, I think then it becomes a headache then, and it becomes a problem, because safety is related here, because potentially we may have failures. We all know we still see entrapment, tip over, these kind of things are still happening. And it's not about whose machine it is and what's the owner or the manufacturer. 99% of the times it is operator error, or we can even go a step before that. And now I would probably call the safety people back to the table, where perhaps that they don't have enough knowledge on the equipment. As manufacturers, you're very powerful, and you always have been very powerful, because you make the product, then you follow it through. And Chabelle, you've mentioned earlier, safety bulletins. Does any safety guys ever approach manufacturers and ask for safety bulletins, or are we talking a different language? But that's really important stuff for us, because it could be something small, or it could be something really important. If you go to the effort to prepare or produce a safety bulletin, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a reason why you do it as a manufacturer. And as you've prepared that safety bulletin, it's now you want to channel through to the right people. So that takes me then to registration. How do we find registration? I'm selling my car today, maybe. So what do I do with it? When we look at movement of equipment now, and in country probably is easier to manage than outside overseas, but we don't have a choice, because we see other equipment from overseas, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's the UK or Europe, coming in across into India. So how can we find registration of that machine? Because when you look at your records, correct me if I'm wrong, it's in a totally different owner and a totally different country. So how do we deal with that as a manufacturer?
Exactly, and we send service bulletins, and we have to differentiate between a service bulletin and a safety bulletin. So if we send out a service bulletin, that's something that needs to be done on the machine. It doesn't require that the machine has to stop now. You can do it when the machine is back into your yard, or whenever you have time to do it. But when there is a safety bulletin, this is where things become very critical, because that means it's the same. I'm not trying to promote here Genie or whatever. So it's Genie or any JLG, Halot, all the manufacturers. We follow our equipment, and we follow the quality that we install on parts on our equipment. And so sometimes even up to 10 and 15 years. And if we find that there is any component that can present even the smallest hazard for a machine to tip over or to be malfunction or present any safety hazard, we issue these safety bulletins and we provide the parts free of charge. We ask the owner of the equipment to change it. And so when we usually what happens is the first owner of the equipment is registering their equipment, and then when it moves on, as you said, especially outside of a country, then no one is aware where the machine is. And sometimes, Jason, it even moves from one to the second to the third owner. So that's even when it becomes more complicated. And you send the safety bulletin, and then we also follow up on these safety bulletins to say, okay, we've sent you the safety bulletin, has it been completed? And we have on our website for all the equipment and all the safety bulletins, without any password, without anything, any safety officer can get onto our website, put the serial number of a machine, and it can tell him if there is an outstanding safety bulletin or not, or a service bulletin. So, but as you said, the new owner should make sure that he asks whoever he bought that machine from to change the ownership in the system from the original owner to the new buyer, so he is aware of anything that's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, so that's again some interesting points there. So the only issues which I generally find, and I have this with certain aspects when we're going through, whether it's training or anything like this, we have to bring the audience to the table rather than directing the audience, if that makes sense. And I do this most of my days. You know, if I want somebody to click into something, I have to give them the click. So what about digital technology these days? How are you managing digital technology? Because is this one channel where we could actually help the safety practitioner then? He's in front of the machine. Can I use the word QR code? Is it possible that we could, obviously we're going to see this on the newer brands, I guess, but is this the way forward for us, where then we direct contact them with the safety person on site? Does that work in our field, do you think?
Jason, I think that's what Sharbal said is very important, that we as manufacturers do on our websites. Anybody can, there's no login required. They can just put the serial number of the machine and they can find out if there is a safety campaign which is being run, even for older machine per se, because we are responsible. We will certainly, even for older machine, we may run a safety campaign. But is anybody actually doing it? That's the biggest question. The other challenge what we have is, like again, Sharbal mentioned, that the first owner, we may have the record, but when it moves on to a second owner or a third owner, which is very rampant in India, unless how do we know the machine or which machine and what is the serial number, who is the owner, unless somebody from the hirer side or the owner or per se the safety manager of a company who is going to hire a machine comes and asks us. That is why registering a machine is very important. India doesn't have a serial registration plate, so we don't know which machine is moving where. So it is very important in order to track this machine and you know, put it against a particular owner. We need to get the serial number and change the owner's name, so we know who is the contact person. Regarding the digital technology which you are talking about, yes, I think most of us manufacturers have moved into that space. Nowadays, we have gone digital even in terms of our manuals, because we are having QR codes which are put in the machines, which the anybody can scan it with their smartphone, and they can download the manual. They can download the operators' maintenance manuals. Everything is there in front of them. Secondly, we are also very much upgrading our websites from time to time, so that more and more information about our machines, about safety, everything is put online. So taking cue of that, and the third part is of course the social media. I think all of us are quite active in promoting such safety issues on our social media pages of the companies and individually trying to build up the awareness. So yes, digital is in. I think it's there to stay, but most and foremost, I think the registration process needs to be really strengthened up in the country.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Soma has mentioned, the registration of these machines, it's also very useful for the hirers themselves. If you see, not only from our point of view, from their point of view, if there's a machine and it has to have a safety update, it is much easier for them to access that than we going to them and telling them, okay, this is what is available on the machine. Now the machine would have started its life somewhere in Canada and reached India, so it's crossed the globe and come here. There would be different needs for those machines. So in that space, the registration becomes the most important thing, and it's easy because on all websites, Soma mentioned, it's all available there. So it's just a click away, and I don't think it's a very difficult
Yeah,
process.
yeah, it's interesting points, and I'm thinking that the HSE person doesn't understand or doesn't have the thought that maybe if I've got this, we'll use a Genie for an example, Charbel, a Z45 from 2008, perhaps that I'm not even thinking that was there a safety alert in that day, which I should check. Then the flow then of maintenance and repair if needed was ever carried out. So I think that this, maybe you're right, Suma, that we need to stand by and have a stronger voice then to the audience, meaning the HSE, and certainly giving a bit more support. What we've done for the 4 sessions of India Safety Week, we've been offering e-learning modules for HSE people to join us, and it's around a 4-hour module, and it covers the A to Z of managing the equipment on projects. So I'm hoping that we have a good uptake on it. We've had around 280 HSE people registered for the event, so it's a start, I think. It's not an easy module, it's actually very interactive. He'll ask many questions to go through specification sheets. He'll talk about the equipment, how to read the equipment, the height, the outreach. But I think that this could be a good starting point for us. But I think, Suma, that you are right, that we need to have a stronger voice. Even though we're all saying the same things, I think that maybe we just need to have a different approach. QR or digitalization is kind of, I think that it is here to stay. Probably most of us was never brought up in digitalization. We were always brought up in read the manual, So it is amazing how the industry is moving fast. But there's 2 parts of this. One, the HSE requirements have changed. Let's not forget that. So the way a risk assessment is written in 2008 in comparison to 2022, naturally that's going to be different. Surely it's more in depth. So I would expect the HSE guy to be asking a lot more questions now. And maybe the recording then could be slightly different. So just for you guys in India, what's your thought on workers and smartphones? Do you think that this is quite common or not? Because if we're going to move into digitalization, does the workforce have the tools then to read the QR code?
I'm not an Indian, or I didn't have the honor to live in India, but I did a case study on Indian fishermen when I'm doing my executive MBA, and all Indian fishermen have smartphones at the moment. So I don't think anyone in India or anywhere doesn't have a smartphone.
Very good. That's very good, because all jokes aside, and I like that case study there, Charbel. I will look into this also. I'm very fortunate. I have many trips back and forth to India. It's a beautiful place. But when we look at the workforce, I think it's important that with obviously our technology changing as manufacturers, we want safe workforce. HSE are very important people to us. So we need to make sure that there's two things. One, that the workers have the tools, and secondly, they understand the tools. And I could even move into where IPAF is changing with their qualifications. Now we have this famous thing called an EPAL. So that means that the qualification has arrived as a digital format. And it's great because now where you guys focus on registration of equipment, we focus on log of movement of platforms. So if Jason is operating on a construction site in India 10 times this week, I can log and register my equipment that I've been using. So it kind of mirrors your registration field. But I just wondered how, technology is it moving fast? Is it moving faster than the equipment? I don't know. But I think, certainly you guys are doing a fantastic job of developing elevating work platforms. If we look at the dynamics on how the units are manufactured this day and age in comparison to how it was when we first come into this industry, there's a tremendous step, and it's always continuation of improvement. As a manufacturer, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're always listening to the workforce, the audience, the people who's in the platform. Vishnu, I know you mentioned to me earlier in the week, we need to keep the worker or the operator, in the platform and remove them from the ground. We have discussed this week actually, because this, again, it can be misleading. When we look at the height and the platform positioning, surely it's very challenging to move the platform into the zone of work from the ground. And the controls are designed that the function controls are direct. There's no hydraulic ramping in there where you can control it to a smooth pace. If I lift up, it's up. If I lift down, it's down. So that sway then in the platform is increased. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we still have this as an issue, I think, in India. In a lot of the projects, we're still seeing this as common practice, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jason, if you look at the operation style in India, and coming back to smartphones, everybody has a smartphone, and they're standing down, operating the machine, watching the smartphone. So that's in itself the first safety challenge which we are facing. If an operator is operating from the ground and you have loads of safety features on the machine, on the platform, what is it used for? Nothing. So the moment the safety officers, the safety heads can bring in, it doesn't need to be legislation, can get the operator on the platform, use those safety features on the platform, we would be saving lives. Till then, this machine would just be a productive equipment rather than a safety equipment, or rather a much more riskier equipment than it would have been. Because the guy standing at the bottom cannot visualize the obstacles at the top.
I
He
think
cannot
this is
see the
important.
basic width.
Very true.
Yeah.
This is a pain point.
And something which I had a takeaway from today's discussion, guys, is, we talk about legislation quite a lot throughout our business. And, we always, I'm sure you're in the same field as me, that we always, well, if it becomes legal, we will do it. I think that we should step back a minute and let's get the basics right. We rent the machine, it needs to be fit for purpose. It needs to be well maintained. It needs to lift to the direction that I need to lift it in, and we need to be safe. And as Vishnu has just mentioned, the safety features, they call emergency descent, for an example, an overload sensor, so it will reduce the risk of overloading the platform. Let's get the basics right first, I think, as users. And this is where HSE people, hopefully on this call, can actually step up now and maybe think of their project when these machines are arriving. Okay, let's do a little bit more homework and research, and they could probably fine tune what type of machine would be good for that that application themselves, and then moving into training, making sure the two guys are trained correctly, the HSE person, the manager, and also the operator. Because there's another page we could discuss about breakdowns. how many times do we see operator error breakdown? You know, I know from my experience in the Middle East, we used to, 2 years back, we were sitting on 30% of breakdowns was operator error, you know, and that figure, man, that's a big old figure, you know. All these, if we get it back to basics, I think we can certainly then have a stronger business then, I think, as an industry for working at height. So just one more thing I would like to open up really is the data plates. How are we finding the data plates in India? Because again, you know, data plate is Jason's birth certificate pretty much, surely. It's going to tell me where I am, when I was manufactured, and certainly what year I was born. And what I can do and what I cannot do, I guess. You know, I would call it a birth certificate, but you know, is this an issue, do you think, in this region?
Yes, very much, Jason. I think it is a big issue. I think all three of us will strongly agree. Unfortunately, in India, everything is possible. Okay, so you might have a Genie new plate manufactured, a JLG and a whole lot new plate manufactured. So, and we don't know about it. How do we even come to know about it that the manufacturing plate has been changed or tampered or whatsoever, whichever way you want to put it, unless and until the HSE person at the work site corroborates the data with us. Okay, so if it becomes a practice, you said we should go back to basics, right, Jason? In
Yeah.
what you said, yes. Technology, of course, has evolved. Today, everybody has smartphone. We do repairs all over, even on the phone through a WhatsApp call. You can tell the operator what to do, what not to do, or the technician, and repair the machine without even reaching over. So this is how technology has evolved. But basics is basics. This is Vishnu said that yes, we have to. It has to be a productive machine, sure, but safety first. It's a safety machine used for safety. The operator needs to be up on the platform. We have to come out of the mindset of having an operator down and operating the machine when he has no idea what is there going on top, just to send a couple of more people on the basket to do the work. That mindset change. Third is when you talk about the plates. We have heard, all of us, we have heard about it. We know things are being done. Unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Even perhaps just on the lighter side, it may be a model which got discontinued maybe 2-3 years before, and yet the nameplate would state that it is of 2014 model when 2010 the model has been discontinued by the manufacturer. Nobody checks it. So I think it should become a part of a HSE manager or safety manager in his checklist to check the serial number with the manufacturer. It's just an email. I'm sure, despite everybody being busy in their work, one of our team members can always reply back to the gentleman that, sir, this is the details of the machine. So it is very important as for me.
Yeah, no, some interesting points there, and I know we can go on for a long time because, you know, our topics of discussion are very deep, but also very challenging. But I certainly hear what you're all saying is support and, you know, helping the owner or the HSE person have more knowledge. And certainly, let's keep things to basic, I think. And as technology is improving, I think that then the HSE individuals need to understand where the improvements are coming. Tampering is a massive issue in work equipment, let's call it. It's not just elevating work platforms. But I think that if we can, at one point of our lives, get on top of this, I think it would certainly it would do more for us than against us. So yeah,
we have recently, Jason, asking all our service teams to check very thoroughly whenever they are called on a breakdown for a machine to make sure that they are aware 100% that the machine or the plate or the serial plate has not been tampered. And anytime we have identified any such doings, we have sent strong letters to the owners of the MUP saying we will not repair and we will not do anything on the machine as long as you continue to use this plate. And if we find any other machines, we could put you on stop going further. So we have taken some measures, but of course, as Suma said, you cannot go around every single depot and try to check serial plates. And I also understand that for a safety officer, it's also not always easy because he's under pressure. He needs to get the machine on site. His works need to start and sending emails or stuff. So I agree with you. This is a problem that needs to be addressed, and probably, with the digitalization that's happening, we need to look at it and see what can be done to make it easier for them to, as you said, with a click of a button, maybe with a QR code, to make sure that this is the right machine with the right serial plate. But it is an ongoing issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed more thoroughly and more globally, I would say.
Okay, good. And totally agree. So I'm just going to open the floor for questions, guys. So I'm hoping that you'll have a lot of questions. So I'm going to pass you on to Romana to take the questions. So just over to you, Romana.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. We do have a lot of questions. So let's start with the first question from Tariq. Is it possible to indicate the gradient in degrees on the data plate instead of percentage? Anybody from the panel would like to answer
that? Okay, I would take that question. What happens when you put a percentage is that's the gradability that we give on a machine. So if you're going to give a degree slope, there would be some portion of people who wouldn't understand even that degree slope. So it's always good to have a gradability, and the calculation is much easier to be done.
All right. Anybody else want to chip in their comments on it?
Can I just add in also? I think just adding on to what you're saying there, Vishnu, good question, Tariq. We also must remember the positioning of platform is the person driving up the slope, down the slope, or across, because naturally, there's only so much you can put on a data plate, I think, as a manufacturer. But as a HSE person or an operator, we should do the extra mile, if that makes sense.
Okay, so moving on to the next question from Victor Teodorico. What should the age of the MUP not to be used in the site? Most of the contractor are refurbishing the machine to be look new, but it is already old. How can you stop this as a manufacturer? So I think he's asking. Sorry.
Yeah, I will, if you don't mind. We, as a manufacturer, we cannot stop someone from using a machine, no matter how old it is. What we have done is that we have for all the equipment at a certain age, certain requirements of safety checks and replacement, ropes, etc. So I don't want to go into many details, but there is a lot of things that need to be done on a piece of equipment when it becomes at a certain age. So the best thing that could happen from a safety officer is to make sure that whenever he is looking at a machine that is 10 or 15 years old or 20 years old, to make sure that all the safety checks and all the recommended changes that are required by the manufacturer have been conducted on this piece of equipment. And if all the checks and all the safety bulletins, all the service bulletins have been completed, there is no harm in using a used old machine, as long as it is in good condition, serviced well, and according to the manufacturer's recommendation.
Yeah, I think Sharbel, what you say is absolutely correct, and what Victor's question is, yeah, I mean, is it refurbishment, which is fantastic. If refurbishment is done, then it extends the life of the machine, done properly. or it's just a visual painting which is done on the machine to make it look better. So yes, we as manufacturers, we really can't stop anybody from using a machine, but we would always profess that all the safety checks and the safety items are maintained in the machine properly.
All right, so moving on to the next question. Thank you for that, Soma and Shagal. Mohammed Shirjaz asks, unified MUP regulations are the need of the hour in India rather than waiting for a longer period of time, in addition to self-control, self-regulations.
Very good question, I would say, from Mohammed, or rather, I would say a statement from him. Yes, I mean, we've been waiting for a regulation of MUPs for many years now. We don't see when it's going to come. So yes, most important is self-regulation. Perhaps it's better to start from there. I think on the first day, Jason, when we had the first session, Mr. Joshi had mentioned the same thing, that why wait for the regulations from the government side, but start from where we can start ourselves, that is from self-regulation. So yes, and that is where perhaps our safety managers play a very important role to follow the procedures which we request that the MIPs they are hiring should align to.
I think
Sorry, go on.
The safety regulations are getting done at a local level also with certain companies. They could be setting their own terms and conditions in terms of safety, which is aligned with the global standards, which is good. Now, has it been percolated down to the site level? Has it got cascaded down? That's something which has to be looked at. Because when we go on a lot of sites, we see people checking the load capacity of an aerial work platform rather than the actual safety features on a machine. But if you look at the safety standards, that would have everything that an international machine would look for. So I think it's how it is percolated at the very entry level of it. Yeah, that makes a difference.
Just to add in, certainly add in onto both comments then, I think that we should step back again. Obviously, the words from Josie John earlier on, as Suma mentioned earlier, was certainly correct. Let's get our process in place and follow the process of manufacturers and safety. If you delve deep into Indian standards or laws today, I'm pretty sure you're going to find keywords of "you must be competent." So the legislation element is actually already there. If you're asking it to say the words of mobile elevating work equipment, or it may say plant and equipment, the terminology of competency is already in. In some countries, we're very lucky to see the words elevating work platforms, but in reality, it's equipment. And if you're employed and you're working on a job site, then you should be trained. And then we go into the manager of the equipment. So then obviously get into that remits from manufacturers process, understanding the safety features and follow it with training. So I don't think we shouldn't be waiting for a particular standard to come out. It's already there.
Okay, so we'll just go for two more questions. This one is from Tarun Tiwari. He's asking, as we discussed here yesterday, are manufacturers working on some more innovative platform designs to protect against inadvertent operation? And also, I would like experts to comment on machine modification. That is a major concern in rentals.
So, sorry, when you say platform designs to protect against inadvertent operation,
I think we may have lost Shabella from.
Okay. while we wait, I'll try to answer and put forward my views to Tarun. Yeah, Mr. Tarun, I think we all manufacturers, be it Collard, JLG or Genie, are continuously innovating in terms of our safety features in our machines, right? And platform is where everything is, the operator is actually supposed to be there. So we are very focused on bringing all the safety features in the platform, be it a secondary guarding system, which is an anti-entrapment system. We have different names for that as a lot. We call it Active Shield. JNG has SkyGuard, so and Genie, and so on. So we have different features which are there, which helps you for in terms of safety in case of an entrapment. There are other features also in the machine, like if it's the overload, if the machine goes into a unsafe working zone, we have cutoffs, we have sensors, we have cutoffs now. So earlier the standards were different. I'm sure Vishnu and Shabil will agree that the European standard with the CE standard was different from ANSI standard. So European machines had more sensors in terms of safety, so that there were more cutoffs, just not audio-visual warning. But now we are on the same phase because even the NC standard has come in the same phase as CE standard in terms of safety, because that is what is most important, right? So we take care of that as manufacturers for certainly. And in terms of modifications, we wouldn't advise any modifications to be done on a machine unless otherwise it is certified by the manufacturers. Because end of the day, it's a safety machine, and safety is of our prime concern. So any structural modification we wouldn't advise unless it is certified by our design team. Yeah, Sharvil, you're back. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, sorry. No, it's all in the same line as they were saying. So there is always a lot. There is a lot of innovation that's happening on the safety in the platform, on protecting the operator. But I think we need to always remind, and I know that I'm not trying to preach to the converted, but we have to always remind everybody that no matter how many safety options we put into the platform, if the operator is not well trained, if he's not well aware of his environment, if he's not in his full capacity when he's operating the mute, you cannot make it bulletproof. You cannot make a mute bulletproof. There will always be accidents. So I think safety equipment is coming. More is coming as we have, with laser, with proximity switches, etc., etc. There will be more and more added, but that doesn't mean that it's going to become bulletproof. There will always be the responsibility of the operator to be well trained, to know how to operate the machine, and to be aware of his environment. On the accessories and modifications, I think a lot of people that do these modifications do not understand the impact that these modifications do on the mute, and the amount of testing that manufacturer. We don't restrict it because we don't want you guys to use a good option that you might benefit from as a rental business or as a construction company or whatever. But these modifications impact a lot the safety and the stability of the machine, the wind resistant, etc., etc. So, and that's why we always say, please send us the modification you want to do. We are always happy to just have these discussions with our engineering teams, with our product management. And there is a process how to get these approved. And then once they are approved, you are free to use them. We don't charge for these approvals to be done, so it's something free of charge.
Okay, thank you, Shabel and Suma. And the only thing what I would add on there is please be alert and listen carefully to what the guys are saying in relation to modifications, because every machine is calculated, and is calculated from the base, call it the chassis, the lifting element, and the height. So it is very, very important, because if we get it wrong, then we're in that zone of danger, potentially at least. We may be lucky, but we may not. And this is where I would always revert back then to manufacturers. Okay, so
we'll have a last question and then a lovely message from one of the attendee. What is the maximum gradient permitted to operate MUPs?
Actually, it changes for different types of machine how they are manufactured. So there is no standard as such that this is what is the gradient permitted. So it is best to check the decals on the machine, check the manuals before you look at the gradient in which you want to operate. Like we always mention in any aerial work platform training, do the site check where you want to take your machine, how do you want to position it before even you do it. Do a recce before you take your machine there. So gradient is a part of the recce.
Excellent, good answer. So I think that we will close the questions.
On point, Vishnu. Thank you for that. And I would like to highlight this message from 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫, who says that it is good to see the united efforts by manufacturers to promote safety and protect operators. So we thank all the manufacturers for joining us today.
Thank you.
I will just add in, it's pioneers of powered access. You know, we're here to keep people safe. So for me, it's a pleasure to have you guys around a virtual table, at least. No, thank you very much for joining us, guys. We've certainly had some good interaction and some good questions. What I would like to do is look further afield now and take this offline, where we can look at how we come up with a kind of set objectives and goals on how we can help India keep developing and keep introducing safe practices. We will certainly be there 110% to support the HSE guys of India, for sure.
Sure.
Certainly. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
So with that in mind, I'm just going to close today's session. Again, I thank the panel for joining us. I thank IPAF team, tremendous job behind the scenes, and naturally our supporters, but most importantly our attendants, everybody who's taken the time out to join us. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Jason. Before I close this program, I would like to promote the upcoming The World of Safety and Health Asia Awards 2022, and they are now open for submission and nomination for six categories, mainly safety, health, technology, sustainability, event, and courses. And the most awaited part of this event is the safety influencer. So to learn more about this award, Award 2020 qualification, requirements, and application, I will link down in the description box below on how to submit your nominees for this a big event. It is open for everyone, for safety, health, technology, sustainability, events and courses. Also, the most awaited part, as I have said, it's the safety influencer. So again, thank you for joining us in this 4-day live webinar in celebrating the Indian National Safety Week. We hope that this webinar helps each and everyone, especially our Indian safety personnel, that this help you from all of the topics that we cater for the 4-day event. So, see you until our next event. Keep safe, everyone, and together let's practice and embrace today's new safe learning and teaching. We would like to thank the following sponsors: 𝐒𝐞𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐦𝐛𝐞𝐫, WSHAsia India. Snorkel, Genie, JLG. Our association partners: OSHAI, Enhancing HSE and Culture; Sarah, Construction Equipment Rental Association; and our media partner, WSHAsia, World of Safety and Health Media. We would also like to welcome MANLIV, Sudhir, powering the future; iRise India,